In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Do you plan on making a decision tomorrow?
I feel like I got to. Probably not as enjoyable as people probably think it is. But like Kirby says, when he wants to complain about being in the national championship and missing the portal window, it's like there's no crying from the yacht. So I'm not trying to get pity, but it's not as enjoyable as maybe some people would think.
Needless to say, the SEC had a banner day off the field. Some great matchups on the field. The SEC championship game is now set up. Lots of teams can now punch their ticket also to the college football playoff. But most notably, 5 new programs have a new head coach, and one is looking for a new head coach. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, right before the NFL games kicked off, we saw a huge wave of new coaches in the SEC, of course, highlighted by Lane Kiffin. We mentioned on this program probably 5 to 6 weeks ago that the Lane Kiffin decision would be the domino effect.
Yes.
It would start the dominoes for everybody else. And that's exactly the way that it played out. The Lane Kiffin stuff we'll dive into. It got a little messy for those that are keeping up there with college football. But I found yesterday to be one of the more dynamic, interesting days in the history of this conference.
Yeah, it was a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
But first of all, hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
100%.
Hope you spent some time with your family. I know I did, so I was amazing.
Yeah.
Getting to go up to New York. The weather wasn't great, but I was traveling back yesterday, and I'm sitting in the car on the way to the airport. Oh, there goes one. Silverfield's going to Arkansas. Oh, Golesh is going to Auburn. Oh, Sumrall is going to Florida. And it's
Right.
like, okay, we had 3 coaches just gone within 30 minutes.
Yep.
And then obviously the whole Kiffin situation, which I cannot wait to not talk about him
Right.
for like a long time.
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to get sick and tired of just talking about him all the time, and I think everybody else is at this point.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he lives for, though. But over a third of the SEC either fired or hired a new head coach.
Yeah, it's insane. And to think where we are now with this league, because and everybody talks about the calendar, and I know it's an awful time to be doing all of this, because you have SEC, not just SEC, everybody in the nation has signing day coming up on Wednesday, so you're trying to solidify your classes. At the same time, too, Alabama and Georgia, 2 teams obviously have their head coach. They're preparing for the SEC championship game, while all these coaches are, getting themselves lined up for where they're going to go next, and the assistant coaches also now looking for jobs as well. You mentioned the fatigue of Lane Kiffin, and I think a lot of it came because it just seemed that obviously there were a lot of tea leaves out there, and he would drop his things on X or on Twitter and the devotionals and stuff like that. People were reading between the lines, but also Ole Miss was right in the hunt of making the SEC championship game, because if things would have broken right, the first domino obviously broke with Texas A&M losing to Texas, but there was an avenue if Alabama lost the Iron Bowl to Auburn, where Ole Miss is in the SEC championship game. And this decision was on top of it, obviously, just one of those things that was on big picture speaking. It was, hey, what will Lane do vis-a-vis what's going on with Ole Miss? And I think that there were parts of Lane Kiffin that wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to be able to take the LSU job, take the 98 or whatever $1 million that came with it, at the same time try to coach this Ole Miss team to the national championship, because they have a great team. And obviously I'm not saying that they would have won the national championship, but I think with Lane, they had a really good shot at winning it. And then, of course, there was the line in the sand made by the Ole Miss AD and saying, hey, if you take this job, you're not coaching this team, which I get.
Yeah.
Then the line in the sand from Lane Kiffin to the assistant coaches that, hey, if you're not on this plane to Baton Rouge, you don't have a job as well. So I found the whole thing kind of fascinating. But then, obviously, what came after that to me was really interesting, because it felt like Lane built up all this goodwill in the offseason. He built up all this goodwill with that documentary. And now Ole Miss is somewhere where they've never been before, in the hunt right now for a national championship spot. And then all these dominoes fall, and it just seems sticky and messy.
I think you can make the argument that you can't really make an argument because it's the fact that the schedule right now is broken.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Just the timing of everything. He had to leave at this point because signing day, as you mentioned, is this week, and then the transfer portal opens up in, I think, a month from tomorrow.
Right.
So, I mean, you got to get a head start on what you're doing. But, you know, we'd been talking about it for so long, and two things can be true. He obviously made the program into what it is
100%.
now, and it's in a better state than you could say it ever has been. And the other side can also be true in that this is just another messy departure in a history of messy departures for one man. I mean, you go back to the LAX tarmac.
Yep.
You go back to Tennessee. Leaving for USC.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to Nick Saban telling him, get out, because you're so distracted on the FAU job.
Yes.
And then the not so messy one was just him leaving FAU for Ole Miss. You bring up a good point about the goodwill in the documentary and how he always said how he needed Oxford more than Oxford needed him.
Right.
And I feel like over the last 2 weeks, I'm gonna expand it to the last month.
Yeah.
He did Ole Miss a disservice by dragging this out for so long.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm so confused why Ole Miss was shocked and had to put in like a SOS plan yesterday.
Right.
Like you knew this was.
Yes.
All the credit goes to Keith Carter because
Right.
I wouldn't let Lane Kiffin do it. Like I wouldn't let him coach.
No,
Why
absolutely.
would you do that?
Yeah, that would have been one of the dumbest things ever had Ole Miss, and I'm glad that they drew a line in the sand and said, hey, this is what's going to happen. By saying, and people who were saying that Lane Kiffin should coach this team, even people that I know and respect, no, that would be idiotic to be able to have Lane Kiffin access to this Ole Miss team.
Let's just let a guy that builds up our program, who now just left it in shambles, pretty much. I mean,
right.
It's like you're leaving the field and you're just scraping up the logo as you leave.
Right.
And then let's just let him coach our team and then try to take all of our players down to our rival school, which is a good 200 miles away, who we beat this year, who is also coming back to Oxford next year.
That's another interesting thing.
Keep that one in mind.
Yeah.
Back to Oxford next year.
Yep.
So, the Lane train's going to be going up to Oxford. And let me tell you, Tennessee threw golf balls at him. I don't know what Oxford's going to throw at him, but, I mean, it's going to be chaos.
It's going to be mass chaos. And while I don't want this to always just be a belly aching about Lane Kiffin, he did take this team to heights that they have never seen before. And when you take a look at his resume and what Ole Miss has been able to do, the last time they had this level of success, in my opinion, consistent success, it was when Eli Manning was there, and before that, when Arch Manning was there. They won one SEC championship game like way back in the 1960s. But you take a look at what he's done: 55 wins so far, won dang near three-fourths of every game that he coached, 3 straight 10-win seasons. And he talked about at the beginning of the season, hey, that this program now has different expectations. They expect now to be a top 25 team, and they will probably, most likely, when the College Football Playoff Committee releases its final 12 teams, I would be shocked. I think most of college football would be shocked.
It would be a disservice if they kept him out of the playoff. Now, I know people are bringing up the whole FSU argument and Jordan Travis injury kept them out of the playoff. No. The coaches aren't the ones playing the game.
Yeah.
The players are.
Right.
You cannot tell me that a starting quarterback being out is on the same as your head coach being out. We see interim head coaches. I mean, I go back to the COVID days.
Right.
The interim head coaches still won the games.
Exactly.
Look at last year.
Yes.
Sharon Moore still won or 2 years ago. Sharon Moore still won the games when Jim Harbaugh is out. So don't come at all of us with the, Ole Miss should miss the playoff. That's just a sad argument for trying to get Notre Dame and Miami 100%. In over Ole Miss.
Yes, I mean, it's a lazy argument in my opinion. To have that now. If Trinidad Chambliss is out and they're starting, and Kejuan Lacey's out, then I get it.
Yes,
being able to keep them out, but even still, I think the resume makes them earn a spot there in that college football playoff. And like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of interim coaches come in and win big games. We've seen that over and over again. We saw it at UCLA this past year. Interim coach comes in and they win the football game. And when you have a guy that's already been on staff, and a guy like Pete Golding, who is the defensive coordinator, now the interim head coach, or actually not even the interim head coach.
He's the permanent head coach.
He was interim maybe for a second and a half, but they stripped that and said, hey, he's our permanent head coach, which I agree with Ole Miss. Hey, you had to do something, and with everything going around, I think that this is a good opportunity for a guy that coached with Nick Saban, coached with Lane Kiffin, coached with Steve Sarkisian. He's been around the best of the best. So this is not just some newbie guy, even though this is obviously his biggest opportunity here as this new head coach. But I'm right there with you. I think that Ole Miss has deserved a spot in the college football playoff, and I think with Pete Golding, they have a really good chance to continue the momentum that was already carried on by Lane Kiffin. I know he coaches the other side of the ball, but another guy that's one of the assistant coaches is staying on staff there. So I don't expect to see much drop off from a production standpoint, even though the marquee name is not on the field.
I'll be very interested to see how Pete Golding takes this opportunity and runs with it. Now, I know he's had some problems off the field back at Alabama with the DUI and then that stuff, and then getting fired by Alabama. But I think Alabama fans just have such high standards that, it was kind of you have to win, and you have to win championships. We won't just take winning. You have to win championships or you're out. But I think this is a great opportunity for him. The biggest surprise, in my opinion, I know you talked about the whole Lane Kiffin saying to his staff, "Hey, if you don't come on me, or if you don't come on the plane with me, you're not coming with me, and there's going to be no spot for you on the staff." I think Joe Judge staying is one of the most shocking things to me, because now we can finally see. Okay, the last 2 years, you had Jackson Dart, and then Trinidad Chambliss this year. Was that Lane Kiffin? Or was that Joe Judge? Now we'll get to see that opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that obviously Lane fans will go back and say, oh, don't look at just the Ole Miss quarterbacks. Obviously look at Tua Tagovailoa, look at all the guys he coached at Alabama, the guys that are FAU and elsewhere. And I think it's going to be really interesting with Ole Miss. Can they keep this momentum going that has been started there by Lane Kiffin? I'm really interested in that. Now let's take a look at big picture with LSU and Ole Miss. What do you expect now of LSU? I think a lot of people coming in are saying, Nick Saban obviously won a national championship at LSU. So did Les Miles. So did Ed Orgeron. You can call Lane Kiffin. I think he's self-proclaimed as the portal king. He's obviously a good recruiter as well. He's a good developer as well. Where do you see this for LSU, and then where do you see Ole Miss now with Pete Golding at the helm?
We'll start with LSU here. I think that in the long run, this is probably the right move for Lane Kiffin to go to LSU, where there is proven stability there. They are proven champions now. I mean, he could have had everything. He could have had a statue built for him at Ole Miss. But, I mean, I go back to now it's not the same because Saban went to the NFL before he went to Bama. But Saban leaving at LSU and then eventually going to Alabama. And, you could talk about how some people thought he was just going to be another coach there. Somebody like in the shadow of Bear Bryant. But now I think Lane Kiffin has all the resources he needs. Now he doesn't have to rely on the portal as much anymore, because now LSU can get these high school recruits. So that way he isn't so one-dimensional. We talk all the time about you don't want to be a one-dimensional offense. Well, you don't want to be a one-dimensional recruiter either. I mean, at some point, if you only rely on the portal, it will catch up to you.
Absolutely.
The most stable way of recruiting is still going to be high school. It always will be high school. And then you can use the portal to fill the gaps here. But one thing I am going to keep an eye on is once their season is done, how many players actually enter the transfer portal and follow him to LSU? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't that many.
No, exactly,
Because he talks about how this is like a disservice to this team, and I almost feel like some of them are mad at him and don't really want to go. I mean,
if I'm an Ole Miss player, I think long and hard. I mean, if the money's right, then maybe you go. But I think long and hard that, hey, we've already built this. We know that we can make a college football.
This guy quit on me.
Yeah, right.
Like why would I want to go to play for a coach that already quit on me once, has a history of quitting on people? And I mean, I respect Lane Kiffin. He's a great coach, but it's just part of it's like, man, like you built yourself up to be this god, and how the past is the past, but. He was I don't know what ESPN's Marty Smith said. He was the Cinderella of the ball, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
he created all that.
He's still the same.
Yeah, he's still the same guy, and it feels like, okay, this is a retread of what we saw, like you mentioned, with the Oakland Raiders and Al Davis having that press conference with Tennessee, and even with Nick Saban, because as you said, like, that part of the story really doesn't get mentioned all that much, which is the reason why I found it really interesting that Nick Saban was on board for, hey, Lane Kiffin could coach this team and should coach this team. I should be, if anybody, Lane, Coach Saban, you should be the one saying, hey, we know the dangers of being able to try to have a foot in both worlds. Try to have a foot at LSU and try to have a foot there at Ole Miss. I don't see it, but no, you're right. I think that, going into it is going to be insane. For this LSU football program, all I have to say is this better work out. Because let's just talk dollars right now. As of right now, they're going to pay Brian Kelly north of $50 million, $54 million. Yeah. And that got ugly because they were trying to fire him with cause. And it was just, the governor got involved. They have a new president, the AD. It was insane.
Before we get into the money, can I just talk about how this is just a match made in heaven? I mean, you've got the toxic relationship right there with the governor and everything. And, we don't want to blah, blah, blah. Yes. Fitting perfectly with a guy that just loves all the attention. I mean, it's just a match made in heaven. Let me tell you.
It really is. We'll see if that converts to wins on the football field. History would tell you probably so. But that's $54 million to Lane Kiffin. But also LSU will pay the incentives that Ole Miss was going to pay him for the college football playoff and everything else. So I think it's like up to maybe $1 million. And then Lane Kiffin's deal at LSU, reportedly 7 years, $91 million, about $13 million a year. Patrick, this is before one player has been paid in NIL money. So that's not even counting the NIL deals and NIL incentives. I mean, it's an astronomical amount of money. So all I'm saying is if you're LSU, this better work.
If this doesn't work, LSU is going to be a doormat for the next 10 years. And honestly, you could make – I wouldn't be shocked if it does work. I also wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't work.
Right.
Because the last big opportunity he got at USC, that didn't work.
Right.
I mean, he had one good year.
Yep.
Then he got fired on the tarmac. Yep. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he got fired on the tarmac in Baton Rouge or wherever they fly out of. Maybe New Orleans. We can have another crazy departure. But at the same time, he's a proven winner.
Yeah.
The only thing he hasn't won is a national championship, and that's the big grudge that people are holding against LSU. Why would you pay a guy so much money that hasn't won a national championship?
Right.
He's the best coach available on the market for one of the best programs in the nation, and we'll see how it works. I think the competitor in him, he didn't really have a reason yesterday why he thought LSU was better than Ole Miss.
Right.
But I think that's partially him saying, I'm going to make it better.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to go there and win. But
time
will tell, and if you look at some of these games next season, I mean, you host Clemson because of the home and home. That's going to be. I don't expect Clemson ended this year on a really hot note.
For sure,
they're in a bowl game.
They'll be feeling good about themselves.
Even in one of Dabo Swinney's worst seasons, you host Alabama. You go to Oxford, which I'm sure they're going to have pleasantries for them there, and then you go to Auburn, who just hired Alex Golesh. So I mean, we'll see. Yeah. I don't know. It's too early to tell, but honestly, I can't wait for the next season already because I just want to see how this plays out.
You and me both. Still a lot of football to be played this year. Still a lot of show right now as well. We have great guests on our show and great topics, and we will start here with our guests today. We will speak with Roger Wallace, our regular Monday check-ins, and I cannot wait to talk with him about everything about Texas, not only football, but women's basketball and the landscape right now of college football. Corey Curtis, who's been preaching to us all year about these Vanderbilt Commodores. They end off the season with a big win over the Tennessee Volunteers. And Brian Brinkley, who covers the Oklahoma Sooners, who also punched their ticket to the college football playoff with a win over, you guessed it, LSU on Saturday. We'll talk more about this Lane Kiffin job. 3 coaches out of the American Conference are now in the SEC. What that means for SEC teams moving forward. Texas, Vanderbilt make their strong cases to join the final 12 teams in the championship bracket. And Oklahoma sealed up a spot with a win in the game over LSU this past week, punching their ticket to the college football playoffs. Still so much more to dive into here on an action-packed Monday. Stay with us. Southeast Sports Plus continues. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. It is a action-packed Monday after a crazy day in and around the SEC yesterday. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, there are 5 new coaches in the SEC. We talked about 2 of them in our last segment. Of course, Lane Kiffin going to LSU, and then Ole Miss making the move to have Pete Golding as their new head coach. So immediately feeling that vacancy. One of the jobs that I think one of the places that a lot of people were thinking with Lane, if he left Ole Miss, is either LSU or Florida. Florida hires their guy in John Summerall, and a guy that he has had a fast track to the SEC.
Oh, yeah, he has.
Very, very quickly. Of course, he started his coaching career at Kentucky, went in and around college football, was at Troy University as a head coach, then at Tulane, where you see right here, and then now the head coach of the Florida Gators. What do you make of this fit?
Well, I think that fast track is because he just wins wherever he goes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably one of the fastest paths to, starting at Troy. He was there for 2 years, and then this was his second year at Tulane, and he's already in the SEC at Florida.
That's
So
right.
I mean, it's just we kind of saw this one coming a little bit because Florida was waiting. As you mentioned, the first domino to fall was Lane Kiffin,
Mm-hmm.
but Florida was sensing that maybe he isn't gonna return our calls, maybe he isn't as interested as we originally thought he was.
Right.
So then they pivot to John Summerall. Well, Auburn was all in on John Summerall
Yep.
before
Yep.
he went ahead and accepted the Florida job, and now obviously Auburn has Alex Golish, so they have their guy now. But I think this is an interesting hire for Florida. I think that he can bring the Gators back, but it's just we're going to be talking about all these new coaches here, and you think this, you think that, you think they're the guy for the program,
Right.
but again, only one team wins the SEC championship and one team wins the national championship every year.
That's
so
right.
It's just bound to be at least one of these coaching hires isn't going to work out. But I think John Summerall is safe here. I think he's the right fit for Florida, and I'd be interested to see if DJ Lagway were to stay, what he could do for him.
Yeah, this is a really interesting scenario for Summerall because obviously we mentioned Florida's expectations are like LSU's expectations. They're national championship expectations. I mean, of course, Urban Meyer won a national championship there. Before that, Steve Spurrier won a national championship there. Tim Tebow, the Heisman Trophy winner. They expect to be the upper echelon of college football for perennially. It's not like a flash in the pan kind of deal. And I think also with the Gators, you fired Billy Napier, and before that you fired Will Muschamp and Dan Mullen, and the list goes on after Urban Meyer. I think what's really interesting about this hire to me is that Summerall reminds me a little bit, not fully,
Oh boy.
a little Billy Napier. It's a little unassuming. He is a hard-nosed coach, and I think a lot of Auburn fans really reminded Auburn of old Pat Dye, and I think it's why Auburn was like, hey, they wanted him there. Of course, he has those ties to Troy University. He knows all the coaches in the lower Alabama area, Alabama overall, even into Georgia, going into Mississippi. It just felt like Summerall was going to be a better fit at Auburn. But now he goes over to Florida, and Florida has those high expectations. I'm interested to know just your casual Florida fan how they feel about this, because it's not like, we'll talk Alex Golish in a little bit. It's not like Alex Golish who comes in and what he is, high-powered offense. They're going to run the football, and it's cream of the crop.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that Summerall's teams have been very, very solid. Always a contention for a conference championship, and I wonder if that could parlay to a national championship with their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely able to unlock a former P4 quarterback in Jake Retzlaff this year.
Right.
Obviously, the off-the-field stuff with BYU led to him entering the transfer portal. But I think for Florida, this was probably your best B option. I mean, your A option
was going to be Lane.
It was going to be Lane.
Yeah.
But this one, he's a little bit cheaper, coming in at $7.5 million per year, 6 years. You've got those college football playoff-based incentives. I think that's just going to be something that you see across the board.
Sure.
And the total contract value is $45 million. That's half of what Lane Kiffin's
Yes,
is.
right.
So I mean, you can at least save some money there. You throw it back into the program, and you aren't like bleeding your coffers dry, so to speak.
Right, exactly. And everybody will pick and prod at this. Of course, if he wins, everybody's going to be happy.
Yeah.
But I think that is a reasonable contract for a guy that is taking his first soiree as a head coach in the SEC. With all the coaches that we're talking about, at least they have some time in and around the Southeastern Conference. Of course, he started at Kentucky. Made a living there. Then, of course, he had some other, stops. So he's been at high-profile programs. It's the first time now. He is now the guy. You mentioned DJ Lagway, and I think it's going to be really interesting because with all these new coaches, of course, if you want to coach 15 years, your first 2-3 years are important to be able to stabilize the franchise. I think when Kalen DeBoer got to Alabama, the fact that Deontay Lawson and Ty Simpson, all those guys ended up staying really helped out, for him moving forward. Now the same thing for Florida. Can they get guys like DJ Lagway and others to stay? I've got a really interesting take here from Lagway. If you're reading the tea leaves, that might make you feel good if you're a Gator fan.
Yeah, for sure. It's always great to end the season on a good note. I feel like we clicked offensively. We ran the ball at will, and I feel like it's just a great day at the park. Yeah, for sure, man. That's all I care about, man. I care about the logo. I care about the brand. University of Florida has done so much for me and my family, and I'm truly thankful. And I'm just honored to be a part of, such great culture here and just such great fan base and just everybody that's around. So I'm blessed to be here. At this point, I'm a Florida Gator, and I'm happy and just blessed to be here. So, yeah.
So he says he's a Florida Gator right now. So obviously you have to feel good if you're Florida, if they can set that solid foundation and have some players help him recruit as they move forward. Meanwhile, we did this with Lane Kiffin. Let's look at the future schedule here for the Florida Gators. Some really interesting matchups. That includes, of course, a big game against Florida State. They're on the road there in that matchup. And then he's got a chance to face the Ole Miss Rebels, which obviously they had a really interesting scenario. They go to Texas and the world's largest outdoor cocktail party this year at Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, and this year's game in the Benz was a little bit of a dud, but
yeah.
I mean, we've had so many coaching changes that we'll get to all the games tomorrow because it kind of overshadows the great slate of games that we had this weekend. And,
right.
It's a little bit unfortunate, but I mean, 3 days in and around the SEC? I mean, it's just been arguably one of the craziest 3 days in recent memory. But,
no question. And I can't wait to dive into this with our first guest today. Roger Wallace joins us out of Austin. We talk the Longhorns' huge win and all the craziness in and around the SEC. Join us for that next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, an action-packed Monday continues with our good friend Roger Wallace joining us from Austin. So much to chew on here because obviously Texas won a big game. The women's basketball team now in the top 2 in America. But let's first off on the gridiron in football. Yesterday was an insane day, and we'll dive more into the individual coaching matchups. But have you seen anything like what we saw yesterday in the Southeastern Conference with all these head coaches, the moves and everything else?
Yeah, all at once, but I think that was all because they were waiting for the big domino to fall with Lane Kiffin, obviously, and then everything fell into place. But no, and then you have the Kentucky thing to kind of cap off the night. Mark Stoops made official today, but I think we saw it coming. I think the fact that Lane Kiffin wouldn't commit to Ole Miss before the Egg Bowl was clearly a signal that he's not going to, or else why wouldn't he have before that game? So. Between that and the lack of chaos on Saturday for the Texas perspective, they just sat back and watched the show yesterday. And it's some bad karma, guys, I always say, to root against teams. And none of it worked out for Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, let's dive into that because Texas obviously took care of business, and that was the first night game between the Longhorns and Aggies in a very long time. From an atmosphere standpoint, what was that game like? And then, like you said, afterwards, needing to root for some chaos outside of that game, understanding, yes, they took care of business on the field, but also did not get the help they really needed to off of it.
Atmosphere was off the charts. It's the first time they've played in Austin since 2010, and a lot of things have changed here. The whole game day atmosphere, not only inside the stadium, but outside the stadium, obviously the high-tech stuff that they didn't have 15 years ago. And then the crowd had to bring it, and they did, even though, they were 2 weeks removed from that Georgia game that took a lot of the wind out of the sails. But, yeah, some great shots right there of the drone shows and just 102,000 actually turning that place into a great environment. Texas has had a reputation over the years for not having the greatest home field advantage, and that has kind of flipped the last few years, especially when A.D. Chris Del Conte came in and made it a point. And then they took care of business on the field. Big second half. It was a weird game, guys, because they go into halftime down 10-3. Aggies score a minute before the half, knowing they're going to get the ball to start the second half, and you kind of feel, okay, this seems like an offensive game that kind of reminded you of Florida or Kentucky, where they're just not doing anything. And A&M playing with all that confidence, you figure they get the ball, they score, then it's a 2-score game, and then things get difficult. And Texas got the stop, and they got the quick score, even though it was a field goal. But two things happened. They ran the ball, they got a stop, then they do it again. And the second half was a whole different story. And, yeah, they took care of their part. And, guys, we've been beating our head against the wall here talking about running the ball. And, lo and behold, it took the Aggies again for Texas to do it. Trey Wisner, 155 after 186 last year in College Station.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I think that was one of your keys to the game when we talked with you last week about what, Texas needs to do. And it makes you wonder where that's been all year. But it felt like it was just a weird game also for Arch Manning, because we had talked about, all this momentum he had built up heading into this Texas A&M game. And it felt like he kind of reverted back to the Arch Manning that we saw earlier in the year. But, I mean, he did kind of just do enough to win. What'd you make of his performance?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a little bit of both where he missed some throws. I'm not making excuses, but it was pretty breezy. And there were some throws that clearly something affected him. But then, he made some plays. The play to Wingo, the touchdown in the back of the end zone. Yeah. First month Arch Manning takes off and runs. So you saw that. And then it looked like he was going to airmail it. And Wingo made a nice catch. The tight end got involved again. Jack Endries had a big game. And you're right. He made enough plays. He wasn't even 50% passing. And obviously he made some plays with his legs, the biggest being the touchdown. But the fact that, again, they didn't turn it over. And he made some plays. So it wasn't like, he was a detriment. It was just they did a lot of other things to help win the game. And I'm sure Arch is saying, man, if I'm watching the back of number 5 run away from me, I'm thrilled about that, which is what he saw a few times. And, of course, the one that iced the ball game there in the last drive after that Kobe Black interception. By the way, that interception, we're calling the game, and, you don't see it you just see it real quickly and you think, okay, he kind of jumped the route, great catch. Then you watch the replay. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That was one of the best catches of the year, offense or defense. He kept it in one hand, rolled over, kept it in one arm, and made the catch. And that's a guy that, hasn't played a lot of snaps at corner, especially in those situations. So
Right.
Storybook for Michael Taft to get the pick, where they got a little pressure and Reed underthrew it, and Taft was right there. It hit him between the 1 and the 6. And then back-to-back interceptions, and Texas doesn't turn it over, and they run the ball. It's a pretty good recipe, especially after the way the first half went, where they didn't get any turnovers and they didn't run the ball, and they scored just 3 points in the first half.
Right. It feels like a team that's just doing exactly what they need to do to be able to win games. And obviously that wasn't something that happened at the beginning of the season. Right now it's kind of politics season, whether it's politicking to get a guy to
Sark's
New York.
everywhere today,
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's politicking to get a guy to New York City for the Heisman Trophy, politicking to get a team in the college football playoff. Before we get your thoughts, Roger, let's hear from Coach Steve Sarkisian saying his team is one of the top 12.
We're the first team since the 2019 national champion LSU team to beat 3 top 10 ranked teams in the same season during the regular season. So let's just chew on that for a second. There's been a lot of great football teams that have played over the last 6 years, but we're the first team since LSU to beat 3 top 10 ranked teams in the same season during the regular season. Okay? I think we have the number 5 ranked toughest schedule in the country. We've played the number 1, the number 3, and number 4 ranked teams in the country. Okay? We went on the road to Ohio State in week 1 and lost to them on a 1-score game, and we have the ball at the end of the game, and we outgained them by nearly 200 yards, and no one else has been close to a 1-score game against them. But I think more importantly, it's the message that what do we want to send to the head coaches and the athletic directors around the country? Do you want us not to schedule Ohio State? Because if we're a 10-2 team right now, this isn't a discussion. We're in the playoff. But we were willing to go up there and play that game.
What I found really interesting there, Roger, it was like an actor that already knew his lines. He knew every single thing. He knows their entire resume. And then he brought up something that I think a lot of people will take time to pause and say, hey, he has a point there. They did not have to schedule Ohio State. Ohio State's the number 1 team in the country. They could schedule just some nobody team, get an easy win. They're 10-2 and now in the college football playoff. At 9-3 right now, given their losses and the way they have been so far, do you think that Sark makes a good point that his team should be in? And what do you think ultimately the committee does?
He makes a great point because that's what he's got to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
he has no choice. He's banging the drum on the SEC network this morning. He's on Colin Cowherd. He's going on Dan Patrick tomorrow with one message, and that is, hey, let a 3-loss team in that beat 3 top 10s, lost to the number 2 team. The Florida game was a 1-score game. The Ohio State game was a 1-score game. Georgia got away from him, but his point there is if you watch the game, you saw it was a 4-point game into the fourth quarter. Then, what happened. But, that's the best he can do. They did what they could, and I think what stings more than anything is if they're sitting there in a few weeks watching Oklahoma, watching A&M, and just icing on the cake for them, watching Texas Tech. Didn't play Texas Tech, obviously, but still, you're talking about 3 programs that they don't get along real well with. And to see all those 3 in the playoff, 2 they beat, 1 they didn't play, and they're on the outside looking in, that's going to sting a little bit more. But it's the 3rd loss, guys, and I know you probably talked about it till you're blue in the face, and I know we have here, but when humans get in a room and you take all that information and then you line up the teams and there's one big 3 there, human nature tells me that, and I'll be interested tomorrow night, will they move them considerably up compared to the AP poll and the coaches poll where they're 14? Yeah. They get to 12, 11, maybe, but even then they got to get to 10 because they're going to be 2 behind them. They get automatic bids. So I don't know. I just think that 3 is going to be the difference, and I'll be fascinated to hear because it's going to be a question to Hunter Yurachek probably tomorrow.
Right.
And for sure on Selection Sunday. What about a 3-loss team, Texas, that is the only team to beat 3 top 10s? What else could his answer be other than they have 3 losses and they have a 25-point loss and they lost to a sub-500 Florida team?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We talked about it at the time that Florida loss might kill them there for their college football playoff chances. Looks like it might, but as you said, the committee's poll comes out tomorrow. Really interesting to see what they do after that win over Texas A&M. I want to flip to college basketball right now. It wasn't an SEC game for Texas, but they played an SEC team in the Players Era Festival there in Las Vegas, and the women got a big win over South Carolina. Doesn't count in the SEC standings, but that is a huge, huge win for the Longhorns, 66-64. What do you make of this team now where they stand in the national rankings?
It was the fifth time they played in a span of, I think, 24 games.
Wow.
Going back to last year, they played the home and home, played the SEC championship, played in the Final Four, and then they play them in Game 7 this year. I mean, clearly for November, it's as good as it gets to beat South Carolina 24 hours after beating number 3 UCLA with 7 players, 3 guards that played every minute. For Rory Harmon, the fifth-year senior, to hit the game winner when she scored 26 the day before and only had 4. And, oh, by the way, broke a 40-year-old career assist record at Texas in that same ball game. And it was what it was. You know, they got to celebrate. They got a cool trophy. They're champions of the first ever Players Era. They all got paid, but everybody got paid. But, you know, Vic Schaefer got it teed up yesterday because he didn't like the way his team was playing against Penn. And so, you know, they came down to earth really quick. But for the moment, and that's why they're number 2, to beat, you know, 2 top 3 teams in a span of 2 days. But that's what it was. And I'm sure that's going to help going to Columbia. They got to go to Columbia again. They don't play the home and home. They get LSU for that this year. They're pretty pleased about that. But it showed that, you know, they have the confidence to play with 2 different type teams. South Carolina is going to try to physical you. They're going to try to athlete you. They're going to try to muscle you. UCLA is a little bit different, a little more finesse. Lauren Betts is 6'7", but she didn't really factor much into that ball game. Got a little nicked up. In fact, she didn't play in their game against Duke the next day. But for Texas, it was a little bit of validation, I think, that we can do this against high level with this team. It's a different team than last year. So now they play North Carolina Thursday, and if they lose that one in Austin, they'll all forget about South Carolina a week prior.
Yeah, obviously a big week around the SEC on the hardwood because of the ACC-SEC challenge. I know you touched on the women playing UNC. Let's take a look at the men's team here real quick. I know you said a couple weeks ago, talking about the Maui Invitational, that if they played Chaminade in the second game, that it wasn't really a good thing, but they did end up finishing in 5th place. What did you make of the men out in Hawaii?
Well, I thought it was a really good bounce back because of how they lost to Arizona State, and that was a brutal loss. They had a big lead and then just could not finish. Yeah. Never got a shot off, down by 1, and that one, you know, you'd think would linger. Now, Chaminade hung around for a little bit, and then I think they put 119 on them. And then they come back and beat the highest-ranked team, the only ranked team in the tournament that I think when the brackets are put together, you're thinking maybe this would be the championship game in NC State. And offensively, you can see Sean Miller wants to play with pace. He wants to score, and they certainly did that in all 3 games. They go over 102 games. And when they're shooting the ball like they did, Jordan Pope had a huge game in that game against NC State. So we'll see against Virginia, and, you know, that's on Wednesday night in the ACC-SEC Challenge, and we'll see. I think there's still a little bit of a mystery, but maybe you know more about them after 3 games in 3 days, and you're starting to see guys settle in the role. I think Camden Heide, the transfer from Purdue, who started off with an injury, and you can see if you watch that game how athletic he is. And, I mean, this guy's fearless. He'll pull up on a 3-on-1 and pull the trigger from 27 feet for 3. So they got a lot of offensive weapons. They got to have enough inside. When they get into foul trouble, that's a big issue because they really only have 2 true bigs in Traore and Vokatitis. So still a little bit of a mystery, but that's a good resume win. You know, when they're adding them up in March, you can look back to a ranked win over NC State. Obviously, strength of schedule is not going to really be an issue once they get into SEC play, but it's not the SEC from last year either.
Yes, absolutely right. I know you've been well-traveled from Vegas going back home and got a big win there on the gridiron. Roger, we thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Can't wait to hear what we're talking about next week when we know what it all looks like.
Yep. And there's
I might have a box of Cheez-It sitting next to me.
That'll be apropos.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right,
see, they get into that bowl
Thanks.
or maybe into the top 12 of the college football playoff.
That's
Roger,
right. That's right.
Thank you for your time there.
All right, guys.
Over in Austin, Roger Wallace joining us. And honestly, there's a lot going on there because, as you mentioned, the women's basketball team obviously doing work and the men's basketball team doing work as well. And now a chance for some bragging rights to extend from the football field to the basketball court.
Yeah, I think it was a shock to the women's basketball world that Texas did go on and take down South Carolina. We talked about it before the year. Dawn Staley's trying to rebuild that team after the national title appearance last year. And what does Texas do? Just takes down 2 top 3 teams and then just moves up to the number 2 in the country. Obviously, on the hardwood with the men's side, Sean Miller gets a big win over Will Wade's NC State Wolfpack.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe they can parlay that into something big, but, just good times right now for Texas. And, Sark's always going to do that lobbying. What we left out in that SOT was at the end, he talked about, Notre Dame last year losing to NIU, which I'm like, all right, I understand what you're saying, but that was Notre Dame's lone loss.
Yeah, exactly. And they ended up, going on a long winning streak and ended up.
They were clearly the number 2 best team in the country.
Correct.
You cannot tell me that Texas looks like a top 12 team right now. I'm sorry.
Especially with a midseason loss to the Florida Gators, given everything that Florida went through. Just like Alabama losing to Oklahoma, if you ask about one linchpin loss that kept the team away from the playoff, last year for Bama, it was the Sooners game. And this year, of course, I think it might be that loss to Florida there in the swamp for Texas. But we'll see if the committee comes out and puts them in the top 12 in this week's rankings. And, of course, after the conference championship game, we'll see where they fall. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we take a look at a precursor, possibly, of what we could see from the committee's rankings with the AP poll. That and more next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, first hour winding down. It has been a very fast hour with, of course, 5 new coaches in the SEC. Kentucky still looking for their new head coach. I got a chance to talk to Roger Wallace about Texas' situation after beating then undefeated Texas A&M on Saturday or on Friday there, and I think it's a really sets up a nice stage, in my opinion, for what the next committee rankings will be. It's the AP poll. Of course, there were some sour fans in and around college football at a few places at some rankings, but let's take a look at the AP poll because this could be the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, of what could be to come for teams in and around the SEC. Missouri still hanging on to a top 25 spot. They're in the SEC. Tulane sitting there at number 21. In between, you have Georgia Tech, Navy, and Arizona. What sticks out to you?
I think Missouri still cracking the top 25 with 4 losses is definitely something that sticks out to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you won against Arkansas this week, but it's Arkansas. I mean, everyone wins against Arkansas, and it's just it's a little bit shocking to me. And I mean, you can make the argument that Missouri didn't even look that great against Arkansas. I think Bo Rila turned the ball over a few times, so who knows? It's good for Missouri to end the regular season on the high note there. You want to see if Bo will stay in Columbia, because I think he is the right quarterback for him, and I think he just rushed back from injury just to try to somewhat salvage the
100%.
season. But I think that's the most interesting thing. And then the Georgia game, I mean, that was a snooze fest on Friday. My goodness.
It was bad. What do you make of Tennessee not being in?
That is a little bit shocking, because I think now I know they didn't play head to head, but if you were to put Missouri up against Tennessee, I think Tennessee beats them.
That was my thought. I think I would think Tennessee would be the favorite in Vegas, and also think Tennessee would win that football game. Yeah. I thought it was weird too that Tennessee didn't make that top 25 spot, but Missouri did. But Missouri being ranked in the top 25, if they are for the committee, that obviously does well for teams that played Missouri throughout the course of the season. Alabama comes to mind there as well. So Tennessee not in, but Missouri is in out of the top 25. Moving into the top 20 here, with the 3 teams that everybody is looking at going into this thing. And you have been, you've been the banner holder for North Texas so far. Still sits behind James Madison, but James Madison, JMU, is not in the top 25 in the committee rankings any of the time so far. They haven't been ranked in any of the rankings, but they're James Madison 19, North Texas 20, and then of course Tulane there 21. What do you make of how the AP views the G5?
North Texas still gets disrespect. I still don't understand why North Texas is behind James Madison, but that 2021 with North Texas Tulane is very interesting, because you've got 2 coaches who are going to finish out their time at their respective G5 schools before they head to their Power 4 jobs. And I think it will be very interesting if North Texas were to pull off this win. I mean, you could make the argument that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country that'll more than likely head to Oklahoma State and probably tear up the Big 12 here after this. I mean, you're going to have Bear Bachmeier, Baron Morton, and then, it's just going to be a dynamic trio of great quarterbacks in the Big 12. I think it's going to be interesting, but I want to touch on something here if we have time after this, what I'm looking for in the poll tomorrow. But North Texas being behind James Madison is still a little bit concerned.
Yeah, especially that offense has been sensational this past year, in top 5 in most of the metrics, and really a dynamic football team as their head coach now is heading elsewhere. And you talked about it with both Tulane and North Texas. Will be playing with a new head coach next season as they head to the American League, the American Conference Championship game. Going into the top 15 now, you have Utah in there at number 15, followed by Texas. Texas only moving up 2 spots after being then undefeated. Texas A&M is really interesting. Sets the table there for Vanderbilt, who got a big win over Tennessee. Miami, who a lot of people, Miami fans, they're out there saying, hey, we should be higher. And then BYU, what do you make here of these rankings?
Why in the world is Vanderbilt behind Miami? I'm just shocked.
Right.
Vanderbilt has played. You look at, all right, what are some of the metrics that the committee uses? Eye test, SOS, SOR.
Right.
When you use the SOS and the SOR, Vanderbilt is in front of Miami in both.
Yes, and he easily.
Yeah. I'm still shocked. What are you going to say? Miami beat Notre Dame, and that's what your argument is? I mean, they lost to SMU, who had a golden opportunity at making the ACC championship game, who then lost to Cal. So that's not even a quality loss anymore.
Right.
And then you lost to Louisville, which, you beat Kentucky 48-0, but Kentucky really.
Kentucky. They were down on their season.
I'm just still shocked. I'm just honestly shocked that Vanderbilt is still getting this disrespect. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Me too. And of course, this is the AP poll, so we'll see what the committee does. It looks like the committee has a little more love for Vanderbilt than the AP poll does.
A 10-2 SEC team should always be in front of a 10-2 ACC team.
100%.
1,000% of the time.
And as you mentioned, that strength of record and the strength of schedule both lean Vanderbilt's way, and it's not even particularly close. They're BYU in at number 11. I think a lot of people had eyes there on that matchup. going into the Big 12 championship game. Bama still inside the top 10, followed by Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame lost to Miami on the field, but ahead of Miami right now. I think they're correctly placed right there.
Yes.
Then you have Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss without their head coach still in. Texas A&M falling 4 spots after losing to Texas.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit generous. Texas A&M only falling 4 spots. I mean, I know some people thought that they'd fall all the way to 9, but I think the big thing I'm going to be watching this weekend in the SEC Championship is Alabama, and if it's not even close against Georgia, will they get punished for making a conference championship game? We'll find out.
Right, and they'll have that 3 losses as well. I do think if you are basically the SEC regular season champion, you should be able to get in,
Yes.
which Alabama is right now, and we'll see what the committee does. And then going into the top 5, how about Texas Tech in there at number 5, Oregon in at number 4, followed by Georgia, and the 2 teams that are undefeated as we sit right now, Ohio State and Indiana, undefeated as we speak, but of course they'll play in the Big Ten championship game. One team will suffer their first loss. It's really stacking up to me like the committee's job, at least with the top 4, will be really easy.
Yeah, but the one thing I really wanted to touch on real quick, I know we've got like 15 seconds. What I said earlier, what I'm looking forward to the most tomorrow is if the committee puts Duke in the top 25 just because they're in the ACC championship game, I'm losing all respect.
The 5 losses on the year. Hour number 2, Southeast Sports Plus, is next.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Just before 11 o'clock Central Time yesterday, things were really hot in and around the SEC. new coaches, new faces, in new places. One of them, Alex Golesh, leaving South Florida to become Auburn's next head coach, the 33rd head coach in program history. Of course, a crazy offense that was one of the top 5 in the country in total offense and in points per game. Auburn needing a lot of offense after what happened this past season. And now they have their new guy in Alex Golesh. A tremendous backstory. We'll dive into all of that here on Southeast Sports Plus. Hour number 2 continues on. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, I think a lot of people, once Hugh Freeze got fired, they started looking around in and around college football. There was a sense that maybe an outside shot, they would get another crack at Lane Kiffin. Of course, that door closed pretty easily on the Auburn Tigers. Now they get Alex Golesh. Some people might not know a lot about him. Of course, a lot of people heard about him after South Florida beat Florida earlier this year. What do you make of this hire for the Auburn Tigers?
I think we talked about in hour 1, Florida had to go with their B plan because of Lane Kiffin going to LSU. Right. And I feel like this was Auburn's B plan because from the beginning it seemed like John Summerall and Auburn were a good fit up until Florida was like, all right, you know what? We don't want Lane Kiffin anymore. He doesn't really want us, so we're just going to throw the kitchen sink at John Summerall. And then at that point it was like, all right, Auburn really has no chance. But a part of me is a little surprised that Auburn got Golesh because he was linked to Arkansas for so long.
For a long time, yes.
I mean, you could say since it opened up in early September, and then all of a sudden you see Alex Golesh is headed to Auburn, and it's like, whoa, because Ryan Silverfield headed to Arkansas. And that there was a rumor that came out about a month ago that, you know, Silverfield was talking with his Memphis team about the whole thing, and then Memphis went on to lose pretty badly to Tulane. That pretty much tanked their college football playoff chances. But I think this is a good hire for Auburn. You talked a little bit about how Auburn needed offense bad. And it was just such a problem the entire year, but the defense was so good that once DJ Durkin took over, it was like, you know, it kind of did a 180 there. The offense just came to life, played like how the defense played to the level of what the defense played before, and then the defense took a little bit of a step back. So I think under Alex Golesh, if he can find the right defensive-minded guy to run that defense, I think Auburn has a good shot at becoming a perennial power again. Yeah,
Auburn dead last in the entire conference in overall offense. In some categories, they finished 11th in scoring offense, averaging about 26 points per game, 27 points per game. But here comes Alex Golesh, who led the Bulls to. They were top 5 in scoring. They were top 5 in total yards, and they're a balanced attack. So it's running the ball and throwing the football. And he took over a program that had won 4 games in the 3 years or the 4 years before it. I think it was 1-11 at one point. So he obviously has a chance to basically rebuild a football team. As far as a pressure standpoint, we saw Hugh Freeze got the can after those 3 seasons. How long of a leash do you give this for Auburn? This is John Cohen's hire. This is his guy. He talked about it at the beginning when Hugh Freeze got fired. He said, I am the search committee. So it is his guy. So I think he'll have a bit of a longer leash. But what do you think will be his leash there for the Auburn Tigers going into the season?
I think it's going to be longer than Hugh Freeze, barring some crazy off-the-field stuff with the whole Hugh Freeze golf scenario thing. Right. And then the one guy gets to call the plays on each down. I don't think Alex Golesh would do that. I mean, you look at his record at USF, and it doesn't really stick out to you being 23-15. But you got to remember, this is a USF team that really was terrible. It was terrible.
I mean, you can make that out objectively awful.
They were trying to catch up to their counterparts in our East in UCF.
Right.
After UCF had that crazy run in the 2010s, who, you know, now there really aren't anything in the Big 12. They're trying to catch up. But, I mean, I'll still give UCF a few years. He's 2-0 in bowl games. He went 7-6 in his prior 2 years before this year, leading the Bulls to a 9-3 season. And, I mean, I go back to that Florida game. He's got to win over an SEC opponent. I mean, you could say that he just completely derailed Florida's season. So I think this is a guy you have to give him a little bit of time. You don't have to give him like 5 or 6 years. I'd say the leash is probably 4 years. Give him some time to get his guys in.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like you have to flush out the old. I think in my opinion, what I know from sports is losing culture is a real thing.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, you can have great players, but they're on a losing team, in a losing culture, and they just don't know what it is to win. You need to get guys in that know how to win, no matter if they're bad or good.
Right.
And here's the thing. Auburn is going to have a good offense under him.
Yes, for sure.
It's just you need to get those guys in that know how to win, that want to win, and aren't just complacent with, I'm going to get the ball, but I lose all the time, so I don't really know what it is to win. But as long as I get the ball, then I don't really care.
Right, exactly. And so he'll have a chance to be able to turn around that offense. And the interesting thing is what's going to happen at quarterback. Of course, he had a great quarterback there at South Florida. Auburn has, of course, Ashton Daniels coming back because they intentionally held him out of one of the games, the game against Mercer, to be able to preserve his redshirt year. Deuce Knight came in, and Deuce Knight looked sensational. Yeah, I know it was Mercer, but he had 6 touchdowns. He showed you what he could do on the ground. The Bulls have a new quarterback there as well. What do you think he does, before we hear Golis talk about this, what do you think he does there at quarterback? Because that's such a pivotal, obviously a pivotal position, but a pivotal time for him as he tries to lay the foundation and the footwork for his offense.
I'll keep this vague because we're going to talk about the Iron Bowl here in a minute very briefly. We'll touch on it more as the week goes on, but I think Ashton Daniels is your number one, but you got to try to keep Deuce Knight as much as you can.
Yeah, a 5-star player there. We got a chance to hear from Alex Golesh in his introductory press conference about the quarterback position.
I've been in situations, more times than I can even think of, where it went all the way through August. I don't know if you can rush that part of it. I do know this. You want to have the best competition you possibly can in a room. Because if you do, you let these guys compete, give them every opportunity to grow, develop within the base foundation of what you are from a system standpoint. And then you pick the guy that you feel like gives you the best chance to win. And there's so many factors that go into that. There's obviously the mental side of it, like who can process it faster than anybody else. There's obviously the physical component to it. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I don't think you can rush that part of it. There's some talented dudes sitting in that room. They have tape, certainly at this level. We're evaluating it like crazy. We evaluated it coming in. I think the biggest thing that we've got to figure out right now is the competition part of that. Are you going to add somebody else? Are you going to add multiple people? And at the end of the day, the competition will take as long as it needs to. I think in the perfect world, you'd love to know in January. In our situation here, we won't. And we probably won't till August, I would imagine, unless spring ball carries out in such a fashion that you'll know.
So, of course, for Alex Golesh, the answer immediately will be who are his assistant coaches. And I think a lot of people will have keen eyes on DJ Durkin. There was an outside shot that he might be able to retain this job. And I think that if you look at what Durkin's been able to do, both from a recruiting standpoint and what that defense looked like early in the season, I would say the first 9-10 games or so, he looked like to be one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire country. Do you think that they keep him on board after what we saw there in the Iron Bowl and the few games that he was the interim head coach?
I think it would be very smart if they were to keep him as the defensive coordinator, because I think I talked about this a few weeks ago after the Vanderbilt game. It just looked like when he was focusing on solely the defense and not having to overlook everything that was going on, that was when he was at his peak. Auburn had a great defense under him when he was just the defensive coordinator. And then the Vanderbilt game came, and it was like, okay, now I have to look at this. Now I have to look at that. Now I have to overlook the entire operation, and I can't spend as much time with my defense anymore when the offense is on the field because I have to oversee the offense as well.
Right.
So I think he would be a great defensive coordinator. He is a great defensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah, he is.
And I think Auburn should make every move to retain him on the staff. I don't think he's going to go looking for head coaching opportunities. He had his chance with Maryland. That didn't really work out.
Right.
Had his chance here. I mean, maybe if he won the Iron Bowl, then you could make the argument that, hey, look, I beat Alabama. I derailed their season. I kept them out of the playoff.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for Auburn, it just didn't go that way. But I think with Alex Golesh as the head coach, and then DJ Durkin as defensive coordinator. That's scary.
Yeah, it shows a lot of real promise for this team. You mentioned the Iron Bowl. This was a great opportunity for Auburn to end the season on a high note. Got down 17-0 in that game, clawed their way back. They fought tooth and nail with Alabama. However, a late turnover by their best player ends up sealing the game for Alabama. 27-20 the final. Bama's chances at the college football playoffs seem to be locked in. Of course, there's no guarantees here. Right. But finished the year with a 10-2 record. The Iron Bowl played at night. Nick Saban said it was haunted. We talked about it a lot last week. Did it live up to the expectations of your first Iron Bowl here in the great state of Alabama?
Gerhard, I think this was the best game all weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Like, honestly, it was bias aside. I mean, you look at all the rivalry games. I mean, the Texas game was kind of a dud.
Yeah.
The Egg Bowl was over in the first quarter.
Yep.
Vanderbilt just stomped all over Tennessee.
Yeah.
Of all the rivalry games. And then the game was also a dud because,
yes.
Ohio State just ran all over him. The fact that Auburn was able to crawl their way back, going down early and making it a game, you could make the argument that Alabama, and I hate saying this. I don't know why I am saying this because I hate saying this. Alabama didn't win that game. Auburn lost the game.
Yeah.
And people in sports know what I mean because when you outgain your opponent by a good 130
more than 100
yards, you should win the game. But the two turnovers played. I mean, it derailed them.
Killer. They're
but
absolutely
I
killer.
will say, the biggest positive is that Ashton Daniels has to be your quarterback moving forward because he played out of his mind. It's just the group that has been the strongest for your team all season just didn't show up.
Yeah, they did not.
It's just unfortunate.
They did not at all. And I think if you're Auburn, you have some things that are good for you, favorable for you as you move forward. But once again, another opportunity to knock off your arch rival. They don't win. So Alabama now wins 3 straight games at Jordan-Hare Stadium. There were no ghosts, no goblins. It just looked like pure football there, and a game that Auburn could have had and did not have there in that game. I found it really interesting now that that Coach Golish is now taking over. His first Iron Bowl will be in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And, of course, Auburn is always – that's their thing.
Yeah.
They want to know how quickly. I think Golish was even asked this at the press conference. Like, hey, how soon will it be before you get a chance at Alabama? I think next year's game could be spectacular.
Yeah.
From an offensive standpoint. If you like offense, I think this game could be dynamic going into it.
100%. And it goes back to what we talked about last week. Next year it's locked in now. It's going to be another unique coaching battle.
Yep.
No matter what.
Yes. Yeah. No matter who's in.
Who's the coach?
I think it'll be year number 8, and that coaching matchup will be DeBoer and Coach Alex Golish, and I cannot wait for that one. You talked about the other games in and around the SEC. The Iron Bowl will be a lot of fun, of course. Certainly lots to do before we talk about that, and then, of course, lots of football to be played between now and then. 360 some odd days. We'll get that Iron Bowl in 2025. They're expecting a lot of points. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we will talk the Vandy Commodores. Could they be dancing in the college football playoff? We'll talk with Corey Curtis next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2 on a Monday. We talk with one of our favorite voices on this show, and what I really like is now that we have a lot of shows, we have a lot of data, a lot of sample size, we can go back to comments that were made in August and September and now push against what we are seeing with the results. To a T, Corey Curtis has told us the way that this Vanderbilt team will play, played.
I was right.
And he said the entire time,
Told you so.
If they can play in the trenches consistently, this team will be able to vie for a playoff spot. Corey, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with the rivalry game. I think a lot of people, Patrick said this at the beginning, like about 3 weeks ago, hey, it would love for this game to be a college football, basically elimination game. For Vandy, it was. They go out, they get the win in Neyland over Tennessee. What did you make there of that matchup and the way that they were able to do it, pounding a Vols team?
Well, you watch this game, and Vanderbilt's clearly the better team. It's in Knoxville. The only thing that keeps Tennessee in the game in the first half is 2 turnovers. And then in the second half, they take care of business and take care of the football. And would they outscore them 24-3 in the second half? Right. I mean, and that's what we've talked about with Vanderbilt. When they play their brand of football, they wear you out in the second half. And, they wore out Tennessee in the second half. They were the better team. They ran the football, all over the Volunteers. Diego Pavia didn't have the prolific passing numbers that he'd had the last 3 or 4 weeks, but he rushed for 150 yards.
Right.
He still put up 400 yards of offense, but you saw how good those running backs can be and the speed that they've got. And they're just a well-rounded team, and they were a better team than Tennessee. Pavia, did have the turnovers, but he certainly didn't let it slow him down.
Yep.
He just kept coming, kept firing. It was a really nice exclamation point for what has been an historic season. It's their first ever 10-win regular season.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
You can't. It was the biggest game in Vanderbilt history.
Absolutely was.
And they won resoundingly. So it's huge for them.
Yeah.
Congratulations to them.
Absolutely. They did so on the road as well. Since losing to Texas, they've only scored 45 points in all 3 games. Diego Pavia has been the leading passer and the leading rusher for Vanderbilt in all 3 games, and they got big
over
wins.
400 yards in every game.
Yes, over 400 yards in every game, which now begs the conclusion about his Heisman chances. I think if you're just looking at the Vegas odds, does it look like he'll win? I think it's a travesty if he's not in New York. What do you make of him being able to win college football's ultimate prize?
He's the best player in college football. He is the most important player in college football. About a month ago, I heard he didn't have the stats to win the Heisman. Take a look at the stats now. Yeah. He is 1,000 yards clear of all of his other competition. 1,000 yards, all right? He's got almost 1,000 yards rushing. He's amassed, 36 touchdowns for the season? Okay. Yeah. 27 passes, passing, 9 rushing. And he's led Vanderbilt to scoring over 40 points 7 times this season. This is Vanderbilt we're talking about.
Right.
All right. Scoring over 40 points 7 times. All right. I mean, and everybody knows what's coming.
Yes.
Every play, and I know I've said this on this show before, every play, run or pass, runs through him. Okay, and they still can't stop him. There's no setting the edge against him. He just runs around it every time, and he's just a tough little nugget. I mean, there is no stopping him this year. I mean, no one's been able to do it. I mean, what, Alabama held him to 16,
right?
And he had the 2
interceptions. Missouri
maybe
was the other game.
That was a big fight. Yeah.
Right, and even in the Bama game, they turned the ball over a couple times. They're in the red zone. So I mean,
it's in the north. Yes.
Right. You change those outcomes into points, and who knows?
I mean,
and also in those games, Vanderbilt got kind of away from its identity.
Correct.
That was also a problem in those games. Yeah. Sorry, Pat.
No, it's okay. I will say this morning we talked about how it seems like it might be a little bit of a distant chance for Pavia to win the Heisman. I saw On3 put out their Heisman poll this morning, and Pavia was number 1.
Oh, wow.
So,
interesting.
I mean, you could definitely – I'm on the Pavia hype train. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. You got me into it.
If you've watched, how can you not be?
He is the best player. He literally
it's undeniable.
Yep.
I mean, like, I mean, look, I think I probably told you guys this story. I heard all about him because I knew some people who know people on the Vandy coaching staff who were with him in New Mexico, and they're like, yeah, he's going to come in and he's going to tell everybody he's going to be the best, but he's going to be their guy. And I was like, okay. And so I go to practice for the first time last year, and I'm like, which one is he? Because, I mean, he's like 5'9".
Right.
And like, number 2. And I'm like, I thought he was a walk-on. All right. And you know, I mean, because that's what he looked like.
Yep.
And you watch practice, and you know, practice is always like, you know, 3/4 speed and everything. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. I mean, it's Vanderbilt. You know, this was still Vanderbilt last year before they turned the corner.
Yeah.
And you know, I always, you guys know Ray Tanner, former Gamecock baseball head coach.
Yes,
he and I
yes.
were I used to work in Columbia, and we were good friends. And we were having lunch one time, and he had a right fielder named Adam Poe, who was hitting about 390, and driving him nuts because he's late for practice. You know, he didn't go to class. You know, all the things that Ray stands for.
Yeah.
And we were having lunch one day at 5 Points, and Ray's like, Corey, what do I do? I said, you look at the 390 next to his name, and you pencil him in the 3 hole, and you move on. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
You know, like Tennessee fans, I see them all on Twitter just railing Diego Pavia. They would love to have Diego Pavia.
No question.
All right.
No question.
I think it's jealousy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
yes,
jealousy.
it's jealousy.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Look, is there a quarterback in America who would beat out Diego Pavia for the starting spot at Vanderbilt?
No.
Somebody who walks in the door and Clark Lee says, you know what? You're right. We're going to put Pavia on the bench and start this guy because he is 6'5", 240.
Not this year.
No, not this year.
Not this year.
Not
I
this
mean,
year.
I've been saying the argument to Gerhard. Julian's saying he's not even the best player on his own offense. And then
That's an argument for that.
You said in the break to us, you know, Fernando Mendoza is a product of the system because of Curt Cignetti. So I just don't understand why the stock is still so low on Diego Pavia.
It's Vanderbilt. It's the same reason they can't get in the playoffs.
But this is
he's got the.
This is 2025 though.
We should
I
be
know,
smarter.
I know.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you look at Travis Hunter. He goes both ways, but he plays for Dion. If
Exactly.
Travis Hunter plays at Utah, he doesn't win the Heisman last year.
Yep.
All right, it matters.
It does. And I wish that we were not so much about the narratives. We could just watch the games because they're readily available for all of us to watch. And when you watch the games, he has been number one. We talked earlier about the chances to win or the chances to earn a spot in the college football playoff. We'll get your thoughts in just a moment. Let's hear from Coach Clark Lee on being able to find one of the spots for the Vanderbilt Commodores.
But, I mean, this is a 10-win SEC team that has played in a lot of tough environments on the road. We've got a Heisman, in my mind, is a Heisman front-runner playing quarterback. But this is a story way more than one person. It's way bigger than one person. It's about a team that plays together, plays with great heart. It's a great story in college football. I mean, this is a story that's gained a lot of attention. And I think, again, to do anything other than allow these guys to compete for it all would be just an injustice to the work they've done. So that's out of my hands. I mean, all I can do is fight for what I believe in. And we play in the hardest league in the country, and we've come out of it with 10 wins, capping it off with a tough road win against a really good Tennessee team. And I have a ton of respect for Josh and the program he's built. In so many ways, his program build has forced us to hit the accelerator in pursuit of Tennessee. But tonight was our night. And, again, I hope that the people that need to be paying attention to that are paying attention.
Corey, I mean, we talk about stories in not just college football, but also in college basketball with March Madness. And, you know, that's what makes the tournament is the Cinderella stories. And I think it would be a disservice to our sport in college football to leave out Vanderbilt and the story that they've built for a Miami team that is just what's the story there, and then a BYU team that in their one game against an opponent that is in the college football playoff just did not look good at all. Yeah, it just did not look good at all.
Well, and you know that's another game to watch because isn't it BYU and Texas Tech in the Big 12? if I would contend if they lose that game by 3 touchdowns again, then they have been given 2 opportunities against playoff teams and shown that they're not worth it. BYU's strength of schedule is 35. I don't know what their notable victories are. I didn't get a chance to write that down. Utah, their strength of schedule is 57. But Utah will get knocked out. Well, they're 13, so they won't get in. But the big problem here is the ACC, in the fact that Miami is not in the ACC championship, and that you've got 2 teams worse than Miami playing in the ACC championship.
Yep.
Look, we could all handle Miami being in the playoff if they were in ahead of Duke and Virginia. But the other issue is if Duke wins that football game, we may have 2 group of 5 teams.
We should.
Yeah.
A 5-loss Duke team has no business making the
Well, no, they
playoff.
won't be in. They won't be in. They won't be
Yes.
ranked high enough.
No.
And so you could have like JMU and Tulane,
Right.
both making the college football play. But that steals a spot from Vanderbilt. If you're still going to put Miami in, because then the ACC wouldn't have any teams in. All right. And I don't think they want to do that to the ACC. Miami came in with all sorts of swag this season, and everybody was expecting them to be it. And so they came in ahead of the 8 ball.
Yep.
And Vanderbilt still came in from behind the 8 ball. But so you've got to hope that BYU loses that game convincingly.
Yeah.
Convincingly.
Right.
And I, and then, I think you've also got to hope that Virginia wins.
Yes.
So that Virginia makes the playoff,
Solidifies it.
and the committee knows that, hey, we're not going to snub the ACC if we take Miami out and put Vanderbilt in. And I don't know how you get them to switch at this point, but I would the AP poll. I don't know if I said this or not, or if we did. Somehow Miami leapfrogged Vanderbilt.
Right.
When Vanderbilt won by 21 in Knoxville.
On the road in Knoxville. That's the part I can't get over. And I would hope the committee rankings and the committee pollsters were able to watch the football game and see.
Yes.
Because if it is a precursor to what we see with the committee, I think it's an absolute shame for this Vanderbilt team to get locked out like that. Because Patrick said if you just line them up 2 losses, that Vandy should be in.
Makes no sense.
I just look at it and say who's favored, because we have a lot of arguments here about Notre Dame, and but I contend this: if Vanderbilt played Notre Dame, who would be favored? I would say Notre Dame would be favored by 3 or 4 points.
Right.
I think Notre Dame is. I understand some of the arguments about Notre Dame's schedule, and Notre Dame is a complete football team. And I would not be surprised to see Notre Dame make noise in the playoff once again. They've got an excellent head coach. They've got a quarterback. They can run the heck out of the football.
Right.
And so, because, Notre Dame would be another one where you could argue, because their strength of schedule is 42.
Yeah.
But they don't have a championship game to play in now, so they don't have to worry about that. So your hopes are on BYU losing and Virginia winning.
Corey,
does that seem to make the most sense?
Yeah. To be able to solidify those spots.
I think Alabama losing by a good margin to Georgia might. You might need that too.
Maybe, but they still have the head-to-head. So I mean, it would still go.
Oh, is Alabama
against Georgia?
That's right, with Texas. So Alabama's in the
SEC championship game against Georgia. Yeah.
But then it's the same.
I forgot all about that.
Same argument about. So I guess that leads me to my question: is do you think, with all of the chaos going on this year, that college football might finally do the right decision and go from a selection-based model to an access-based model for the playoff?
What do you mean an access-based model?
Like, here is what you need to do. So let's just say, there are 3 spots, and I know this isn't really the right thing. There's 3 spots for the SEC. It's the 2 conference champions, and then you have the 3 and the 4 finish, like the 3rd and the 4th place finish, play each other for that 3rd spot to make it.
So you have a playoff between 3 and 4
rather than
for a
have
spot in the playoffs.
Have a committee politicking about this team should get in over this team. You just play the game and then you're in like that.
But it's funny because, I'm not disparaging diving, gymnastics. They're all amazing athletes.
Yeah.
So don't hear me wrong on that. They are sports and they're amazing athletes. I hate sports that are decided by opinion.
Yeah, me too.
I like
Me too.
I like sports that are decided on the field.
Yes.
When you impose your will against someone else, and that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Creating a structure where you impose your will and earn your spot in, and it's not up for debate.
Yeah.
Now, what is up for debate is how many teams does the SEC get? How many teams does the Big Ten get? How many teams does? So that is where, the trouble lies. And the trouble lies also, how many Division 1A football teams are there?
130, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So the NFL's got 32. So
right.
When you put 14 in, it's a little easier to draw those lines out. But unfortunately, Pat, I don't think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Because you've still got Notre Dame as an independent,
Right.
And you've still got the group of five is going to want theirs, and understandably so. I mean, believe me, I went to a school that went 27-5 in basketball and got left out on Selection Sunday, and you know what? That was 36 years ago, and I'm still bitter.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm still bitter. So I will commiserate some with the group of five. I agree with you, Pat, that would be to take the debate out of it would be nice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see a really good solution, and life's never fair, so it's not going to be completely fair.
I think the best way is to expand the playoff, and then you set these boundaries for each of the conferences to get X amount of teams in, get your group of five in, get your independent in.
Well, I mean, I still think that eventually we're just going to get to the point where the Big Ten's 24 teams and the SEC is 24 teams, and they're going to square off for a championship.
Right.
I mean, don't you think they'll cannibalize the ACC and the Big 12?
Yeah.
We'll call it a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you have like two ACC teams and the second team is just downright awful.
This year is not
16.
Great for the ACC.
No.
I mean, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. This year, the ACC should be thanking the committee that they have these parameters to at least get one team in, because outside of that, there's a situation where no team should be in.
There's a reason James Franklin sprinted to Virginia Tech.
100%. 100%.
It's a much easier path to the college football playoff.
Yep.
Much easier path.
Exactly.
And so he knows it.
Yep.
I mean, Clemson's falling apart. Florida State can't keep the car on the road. I mean, and Miami is always good for a brutal loss.
Right. And we'll see if Miami is ahead or behind of Vanderbilt in the college football playoff committee rankings coming up tomorrow night. Corey, thank you so much for your time here and all your insights on Diego Pavia and this Vanderbilt football team enjoying an amazing season.
All right. Well, anytime you guys want to bring me on and tell everyone how smart I am and that I've been right since day one, I'm happy to hear it.
Absolutely. We are keeping receipts. And my man, Corey, you have been on it the entire season. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Every squirrel finds a nut, guys.
Exactly. He's humble, but he's been true. He's been true about this team. He's been true about that quarterback. And we'll see where the committee has them coming up in the rankings coming up tomorrow, because obviously it will do a lot with no more games left on the schedule. Coming up next here, we head over to Oklahoma. I'm checking in with the Sooners and Bryant Brinkley. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, it was a chaotic weekend off the field as it relates to coaches and on the field in some games. But however, one game did determine, for the most part, all but guaranteeing a spot in the college football playoff. Texas still crossing their fingers, but Oklahoma, they are in. We are joined by Brian Brinkley out of Oklahoma City. Brian, what'd you make of the Oklahoma matchup against LSU? Looked dicey at the beginning. A couple of big interceptions there for John Mateer, but they were able to slam the door shut and open up their chances to solidify a spot there in the top 12.
Yeah, I was joking to someone at whatever point you want to say, mid-third quarter or something, Oklahoma was like the Dr. Pepper commercial. They were looking for a side team, and Bushy Bill walked through the door. But they saved the day. They made 2 huge offensive plays, and then the defense was phenomenal again. And at this point, it's the old Jim Valvano saying, survive in advance. That's all you have to do. That's what they've been doing for the last 4 weeks, and they got it done. I mean, the defense was fantastic. I was impressed with LSU's defense. OU's offense really struggled, but they made barely just enough plays to win the game. And at this point in the season, that's all that counts.
Going into that game, Michael Van Buren, the LSU quarterback, taking over for Garrett Nussmeier. This offense, the LSU offense, hadn't been great, just to be honest with you, all season long. It never really found its footing. But once again, the Oklahoma defense came up big. What did you make of that unit? And not just on Saturday, but what this could mean for a run at the national championship and the way that they'll need to play moving forward?
Well, I mean, it's the old saying, defense wins championships. We're going to find out. I don't know if Oklahoma's got enough offense to do that, but the defense has carried them a long ways this year. And as the season keeps going on, I think these guys' confidence is just growing and growing. I looked up a stat. This is the first time since 1984 that OU's won 4 conference games by scoring fewer than 25 points in those 4 games.
Wow.
That's only happened four seasons since World War II. And you're going back to 84, which is a really good Oklahoma defense back then, too. So OU has definitely done it with defense. And these guys they just believe that they can stop anybody at any time. And, they're able to. One of the things as they've grown with this defense the last few years is they had a tendency to give up some big plays, and that now they're starting to eliminate that. Mm-hmm. And you're making teams drive 80 yards and 14 plays or something. That's not going to happen too often against OU's defense. And I think they are ready to take on all comers with whoever's next in the playoff.
I kind of am making a correlation here to Iowa teams of a few years ago with just an elite defense and an offense that really makes you scratch your head and think, man, how is this team, competing for a spot in the college football playoff? But outside of the 2 touchdowns there, it was a rough going for John Mateer yet again. And I feel like we've been speculating all year about, maybe the hand isn't so great. It seems like the spot in the playoff is locked up right now. What would be a successful, run in this playoff here? Would it be winning a game? Would it be obviously trying to make the national championship? But what is a realistic projection for this team building into next year?
Not knowing the bracket yet, but, having some general idea. I think if you win one game, that would be tremendous. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to have to play somebody. I mean, whatever OU seed is, it's going to be something where they're playing like the 1 or the 2 seed in the next round. Yeah. So, that's going to be tough. So I think if you win one game realistically, now Oklahoma fans, you get to this point, it's national champ or bust. But I think realistically, if they can win one game, in my book, they've already accomplished, I think, far beyond what people thought was going to happen. But I think you win one game, especially if it's at home. If they have to go on the road, if something happens crazy, and maybe it's not even crazy, but if something happens this weekend to bump them down to a 9 seed or below and they have to go on the road, that's going to be really tough. But if they're at home, you win one game there, I don't know how much you can complain about after being 6-7 last year.
Yeah, I think you're rooting for Georgia here this weekend, because if Alabama were to win the SEC, I think they leapfrog them even with the win.
Oh, yeah,
You could definitely make that argument.
No question about it. And for this offense, we've talked about John Mateer, going into this season, even going into these last few games, Talk a little bit about his leadership. I mean, from a yards perspective, he had the yards, over 300 yards in the game. I know they didn't score as many points, but what do you make of John Mateer as a leader for this offense? As you mentioned, not scoring a lot, but doing exactly what they need to do to be able to win these games to punch their ticket.
Yeah, he's a big-time leader. I think I said earlier this year he's the best leader that they've had at quarterback probably since Jalen Hurts 1 year in Norman.
Yeah.
And he said after the game, he had some interesting things to say after the game Saturday about how he just his whole life his mood is determined by how he's playing as a football player, and when things go bad, he tends to beat himself up over it. And man, he had a lot to beat himself up over on Saturday against LSU with 3 interceptions, and yet he's able to hang in there. And he talked about how much he's grown. He said this wouldn't have happened 2 or 3 years ago, and I think he's grown a lot this year. And everything we've heard all season long from his teammates, they have the utmost respect for him as a leader, and that's just another notch in the belt with the way he was able to respond in the clutch when the season was on the line.
Absolutely. Got a chance to hear from head coach Brent Venables on his QB1.
You know, I'm not surprised. You know, he threw for over 300 yards, and ran the ball. A lot of it didn't look like a whole lot, but he took shot after shot, you know, blow after blow, and he kept responding. And thankful that, you know, he's got the right kind of toughness and the resolve and the resiliency to believe there at the end. And he's done that in several of the games. You guys got all the stats and the storylines of several other games against really good people in the fourth quarter where he put a drive together. You know, we made some plays, you know, when we needed to that were the difference in the game, and he did it again, you know, here tonight. And we really took the whole game to compliment, you know, one another, but we finally did.
There's Brent Venables on his quarterback. Got your thoughts as well. We want to get your thoughts about something else, more umbrella, big picture. Just what did you make of yesterday and the craziness there in and around the SEC? 5 new coaches, some coming from a group of 5, and then Ole Miss, LSU, Auburn, all getting new guys. Just what did you make of yesterday's craziness?
What that you just said, it's craziness. I mean, what are we going through here in college football these days? And all the introductory news conferences today, the American Championship game is going to have 2 coaches who are headed to a different school,
Yes.
but they're going to coach in the American Championship game, and then I think they're both going to stay with the team if they go to the playoff all the way through. So that's fascinating in and of itself. I mean, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and the SEC has become so competitive, and the fact that there's 6 schools that are changing coaches this year is just incredible. And I mean, going into the season, we talked about, you know, what does Brent Venables have to do to keep his job?
Right.
Obviously he's done that with a 10-win season, but it's, I mean, I think you guys have followed the SEC longer than we have, just second year Oklahoma's have been in the league, but I think top to bottom, this is maybe the best the SEC's ever been. I mean, Arkansas was in almost every game they played in and didn't win in the league. I mean, this is a brutal league, and it's unfortunate that it's at this level. But I mean, all of these coaches go in, they know what the game is.
Yeah.
And they know if you don't win, you're going to be gone. And you know, some of these hires might be really good ones, and some may turn out to be not so good. We won't really know for a while, but it's insane. I mean, and the way it's going, I mean, I think you can. I would bet that 2 or 3 more guys are going to get fired next year.
Yes, yes.
I think you can almost guarantee that that's going to happen.
Yep.
I think part of the thing is, I think the 12-team playoff has made schools think that, oh, well, a bunch of teams are going now. We need to be one of those. But 12 is still a really small number.
Still slim. Yes.
Especially when you factor in a group of 5 champions got to be in.
Right.
And we may have this year, the ACC may not even get a team in.
Yes, exactly.
To the whole playoff.
Right.
So you really have to, as Heather Dinich said the other day, you know, you're going to have to finish in the top 10 probably if you don't win your conference to get in this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think, I mean, this isn't a 64-team or 68-team basketball tournament.
Correct.
You have to still be really good. And I think it's a shame. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying they should be in, but a 10-2 Vanderbilt team what else do you want them to do?
That's
and they're
exactly
probably
right.
going to get left
Exactly.
out.
That's exactly right. We actually talked to Corey Curtis about that over there in Nashville just moments ago. Before we let you go, we want to talk some hoops a little bit. Oklahoma's basketball team picked up a win over, not a blue blood, but one of the better teams in college basketball over the last 2 decades. Got a big win there over Marquette. What do you make of where the Sooners stand right now in the early part of the season?
Yeah, that was much needed. We were wondering, why did they play that game at Illinois, Chicago? Why did OU and Marquette travel to Chicago to play at UIC, which is kind of interesting to me. But that was a big-time win. I don't know how good Marquette's going to end up being, but Oklahoma needed that. They needed a win over a Power 5 conference opponent. And they're growing. It's going to take time. They have so many newcomers, but everyone's starting to, I think, get a little feel for each other. And Nigel Pack was the only one of the newcomers I really knew a whole lot about, having played at K-State and at Miami. He was big time. He had 5 or 6 threes, and some of those other incoming transfers played well. Tay Davis had a double-double. And that was a game where they faced some adversity and were able to, they went on a little run there, took a lead, then Marquette storms back, ties it, and they avoided a collapse there at the end. But that was an important win, I think, for Porter Moser. And they got another big game coming up against Arizona State. Let's see, when is that? Saturday, I think. Saturday.
I believe so. Yeah.
They got Wake Forest Tuesday.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Got Bedlam a week from Saturday. So this is you don't think of early December as critical weeks for men's basketball teams, but this is a couple of critical weeks here for Oklahoma coming up.
Absolutely. Big time stuff there for the football team. Obviously now into the college football playoff. Basketball, some really great matchups. Brian, thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Brian Wrigley joining us from Oklahoma City. Lots of great basketball to enjoy. The football team will play at least one more game coming up in the college football playoffs. So it should be a whole lot of fun. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we wrap up Turkey Day. What my main man Patrick was able to do in the northern part of the United States of America. That and more next. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Of course, this is our first show since Thanksgiving. Hope you and yours had a very, very good holiday. Got a chance to eat a lot of food and play some football. I would consider some of the top performances of Thanksgiving weekend. Diego Pavia obviously comes to mind.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma defense comes to mind. Texas as a team, especially defensively, getting some big plays over Texas A&M was a thing as well. But if I'm combining offense and defense, my player of the weekend might be Patrick Waugh.
Whoa,
Patrick,
there. No.
Let's wrap up your holiday because I know that you played at a very important Turkey Bowl.
Yeah, so I played at a Turkey Bowl. I went up to good old Rochester, New York, which, down here in Mobile, Alabama, it's raining. I did hear the rain a little bit. It's 59 degrees. It probably feels a little bit cooler than that. But when I played in this Turkey Bowl, the wind chill was at 20 degrees.
Ooh.
So, I'm like, oh, goodness. And here we go. So, we'll roll through some of the highlights. We got some of the highlights here for you. This is first drive of the game here. There's me in the black hoodie. Drop the first pass.
Oh, no.
And it's just like, man, that
was
one
it just
hurts.
too cold? What was going on there?
I wasn't really in there yet.
What was the warm-up like, though? I got to ask you, what was the warm-up like? Was it very
the warm-up? All right, the warm-up, it was just like I gotta get a nice little stretch here, going quick. Gotta hit a quick jog and, just warm-up stuff.
Yeah.
And first pass wasn't great. It wasn't really. I just wasn't ready for it, honestly. And I think this is it again. Yeah, it just slips through the hands. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, here we go. We're going to get right back out of here. And here I am, looking for it again. And this one's tipped up. I almost catch it off the tip, but just unable to. And then it's going to quickly go to me getting burnt at safety.
Oh, no.
That wasn't technically my coverage, but here we go. Here's the first good one over the middle there. Nice slant route for the tutty. First one of the day.
I like it.
And then I'm going to look for a second. I'm hitting that same slant route again. I got it, but, it got us inside. That did lead to a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the one where I burned this guy. I was wide open.
Oh, I see the hand go up.
Yeah, both hands go up. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I was wide open. And then here we go. I'm boxing the guy out for the game winner there.
Wow.
Give us the win in game one.
Wow.
And I got some stats on the day. 6 catches, 63 reception yards, 2 touchdowns, but 5 drops. That's always going to come back to hurt you. But on defenses, 5 passes defended, 8 tackles, and added a pick on the day. But, this is all in good fun. But, there's one thing that did happen. Unfortunately, I have the insider info. I suffered grade 2 calf strain.
Oh, no.
I'm going to miss significant time. I'm going to be placed on long-term injured reserve. But the good news is the earliest you can expect me back is for next year's Turkey Bowl.
You got a chance to recover. You got 12 months.
The calf's hurting a little bit. It's just I got 12 months to recuperate and maybe take stretching a little bit more serious that time. But
that's what I was going to ask you. I wonder if with the early struggles, we talked about Diego Pavi's early struggles.
Yeah.
Were your early struggles based on the fact that you didn't warm up as much or as well as you should have?
Well, it might also have been the fact that I hadn't played football, two-hand touch football in like 2 years. So there was that, and just the fact that it was 22 degrees outside, it was cold, it was windy. I thought it was going to snow. That flight coming in, the night before it snowed, and I'm like, oh goodness, we're gonna have a snow globe for the Turkey Bowl. But we finished second place. There were 4 teams because we had so many people come out.
Mm-hmm.
I think both games were 6-on-6.
Right.
We went 1-1. We had a 4-1 lead in game 2, thinking we're gonna win. We had 2 pick sixes, and then they came back. Scored. It was 1st-7.
Yeah.
And we just did touchdowns for 1 point. So
yeah.
Just unfortunate, but it was a good time. Spent some time with family, and obviously I got to play some football. But I woke up the next day and I was like, man, I'm hurting.
Give a shout out to the winners. Who actually won? Do you know some of the
yes. So my baseball coach from high school ended up winning.
Nice.
I did get 1 interception on him, so there is that.
Got to show him his boss.
I do got to show him his boss. But it was fun. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I did. I had an amazing Thanksgiving, not nearly as productive as yours with the catches and the second place finish in the